Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with Roy Miller, as he walks through Wichita Airport and notices that a flight to Boston is delayed. A woman named June Havens, who has a heavy carry-on bag, checks in and asks if she can get on an earlier flight. Roy, a man who's been watching June, accidentally bumps into her a few times during security. June, who is a skilled mechanic specializing in vintage cars, shows the security agent the special parts in her bag. These parts are for her sister's wedding gift, a '66 Pontiac GTO that she's restoring. Although June has a confirmed reservation, she's told at the gate that the flight is overbooked. Roy manages to get on the flight, and quietly tells her that sometimes things happen for a reason. Unbeknownst to her, a CIA special agent named Fitzgerald is keeping an eye on Roy, and is talking to his boss about something called the Zephyr. Fitzgerald notices Roy's interactions with June through airport security cameras, and becomes curious about her. His partner suggests sending field agents to pick up June in Wichita, but Fitzgerald has a different plan in mind. A moment later, the gate attendant informs June that a seat is available for her, and she can board the flight. Roy is upset, because he knows that Fitzgerald is behind this sudden change of plans. On the flight, June notices that there are only a handful of other people on board. She relaxes with a drink, and shares her dream of driving the restored GTO to Cape Horn with Roy. Meanwhile, Roy keeps a close eye on the other passengers. He somberly remarks that someday often means never. June is charmed by him, and after a moment of turbulence causes her to spill her drink on her shirt. She heads to the restroom. During her absence, a sudden attack ensues, and the remaining passengers and crew turn on Roy, overpowering everyone, including the flight attendants and pilots. One of the pilots demands to know the whereabouts of the Zephyr, before joining in the attack against Roy. Amid the chaos, Roy questions why Fitzgerald orchestrated June's presence on the plane. June leaves the restroom, and finds Roy holding 2 drinks. She kisses him, but he calmly reveals that everyone on the plane is dead. At first, June thinks he's joking, but as the plane hits turbulence, she sees the lifeless bodies tumbling in their seats and spilling onto the aisle. Roy manages to land the plane on a highway, but it skids into a cornfield. He gives June a drink, but she realizes she's been drugged. He warns her that bad men will come looking for her. She must pretend not to know Roy, and avoid getting into cars with them. She should be cautious if she hears words like safe, stabilize, and secure repeatedly. It's a sign they might intend to harm her or imprison her where no one can find her. The plane explodes, and June loses consciousness. When she wakes up at home, she finds water, aspirin, a clean shirt, and breakfast waiting for her. Post-it notes from Roy remind her not to recognize him. As she rushes to get ready for her sister's wedding, she doesn't realize she's under surveillance. She has a tough day trying on bridesmaid dresses for her sister April's wedding. They discuss what to do with their dad's GTO car, and June is surprised to find out April wants to sell it. While at a shop, a man tricks June into leaving, claiming her truck is getting a ticket. However, she's ambushed by Fitzgerald and his agents, who force her into one of their cars. Despite her denials of knowing Roy, Fitzgerald presents airport security footage showing Roy bumping into her and talking to her at the airport. He also provides evidence that she was on the flight with Roy. When she insists they didn't talk about any FBI agents, Fitzgerald brings up the name Simon Feck, which she has never heard before. He uses the very words Roy warned June about, taking her to a secure place until they contain Roy, somewhere safe. Suddenly, Roy appears, and in a thrilling sequence of shooting acrobatics and a high-speed car chase, he rescues June. She is in a state of confusion and fear, as Roy gets caught in a gunfight. She manages to escape, hops on a bus, and heads to the fire station, where her ex-boyfriend, Rodney, works as a firefighter. She shares her story with Rodney, who thinks she's just stressed from the upcoming wedding, and takes her out for some pie. While they chat, Roy arrives and kidnaps her. He handcuffs her and shoots Rodney in the thigh, a non-fatal wound, explaining it will make him a hero and help him get a promotion. Roy reveals that security cameras in the pie shop recorded footage that will make it look like June is his hostage, which should clear her name with the local police. He also tells her he tried to warn her not to get on the plane. June protests angrily, saying she felt safer with the agents than she does with Roy now. However, he takes her to a garage, uncuffs her on the roof, and tells her to go. He says her life expectancy is much shorter without him. But he must ensure the safety of someone who trusts him more than she does. She has a change of heart, and agrees to go with him to pick up Simon Feck, an inventor who created the Zephyr, a perpetual energy battery. Roy explains that he was guarding Feck, and found out that Fitzgerald, the agent who took her, planned to kill Feck, steal the Zephyr, and frame Roy as a rogue agent. They arrive at Roy's safe house in New York City, but Feck is missing. He's left a hidden message among math equations, revealing he can be found on a train in Austria. He is in the Alps. Antonio Quintana, a Spanish arms dealer, sends men to ambush them. Roy drugs June again, and she drifts in and out of consciousness during their capture and escape from Antonio's men. Roy takes her to an off-the-grid island in the Azores, which he calls his home. Frustrated, she leaves him to explore the island, and discovers a message on his phone, showing a movement alert, and a satellite zooming in on a Boston address, with a man cleaning a '67 Grand Prix. While studying this, her sister calls. Accepting the call leads Antonio's group to the hideaway. June returns to Roy, smiling at first, but then she attempts to hit him. He evades her blows and shows her a self-defense move. They end up playfully wrestling in the sand, both laughing. However, their laughter is interrupted by the arrival of a remote drone sent by Antonio to kill them. They reach Roy's helicopter, but she is scared of flying, and doesn't want to be drugged again. So, he uses a Vulcan neck pinch to gently knock her out, and transports her to a train traveling through the Alps. June wakes up alone, and finds a message from Roy. She heads to the dining car for breakfast, where she encounters a man named Bernhardt, thinking he's Simon Feck. She chats with him, mentioning she's a friend of Roy's. It's only when she discovers Roy's message on her boot, that she realizes Feck is with Roy, and Bernhardt is someone else. She hurries to the train's galley, where Bernhardt corners her, and tries to harm her. Roy and Feck arrive just in time, and Roy fights Bernhardt. June attempts to help by hitting Bernhardt, but he catches her in a hold. Using the move she learned from Roy, she manages to break free, causing Bernhardt to get impaled on his own knife. He's then knocked out of a window, presumably killed by an oncoming train. At the next station, Fitzgerald is leading an investigation, but Roy, June and Feck are nowhere to be found. At the car they traveled in, Fitzgerald breathes on the window, and notices a circular mark left behind. Peering through it, he sees Roy outside, staring at him, before vanishing into the crowd. Roy arranges for June and Feck to stay at a hotel in Salzburg. He heads to a meeting with a mysterious woman named Naomi. June, curious, follows him, and overhears him making a deal to sell the Zephyr to Antonio. The CIA picks up June, and she meets with Isabel George, the director of counterintelligence. George shows her slowed down footage from the Wichita airport cameras, suggesting Roy used her as a mule to smuggle the Zephyr through airport security, hiding it with the bulky metal parts for her father's car. George confirms that Roy is a rogue agent, and provides June with a pen to signal them when she's with Roy and the Zephyr. When Roy returns to the hotel and reveals the Zephyr, which is now overheating, June uses the pen to alert the agents. He notices and bids her a sentimental farewell, before escaping to the rooftops. After a chase, Roy is shot, and he falls into a river. Fitzgerald realizes the Zephyr is missing. Director George assures June that they'll locate Roy's body, as he had the Zephyr with him. She's returned home in time to be at her sister's wedding. Elsewhere, Fitzgerald and his partner are driving through Germany with Feck, but they're headed in the wrong direction. Fitzgerald ruthlessly kills his partner, and contacts Antonio, arranging to meet him in Spain in 2 days with Feck. After the wedding, June is at her garage, disappointed that April wants to sell the GTO. While working there, she hears a song on the radio that Roy used as his ringtone. She recalls an address from his phone, and realizes it's just an hour away. She believes it might be a safe house that Roy would go to. On her way there, she notices she's being followed, and uses a trick she learned from Roy to shake off her pursuers. She reaches the house, and meets Molly and Frank, who turn out to be Roy's parents. She discovers that Roy's real name is Matthew Knight. They share that their son, a former Army sergeant and Eagle Scout, is believed to have died in a helicopter crash in Kuwait. Frank and Molly, who are incredibly wealthy, attribute their fortunes to winning lotteries and sweepstakes they can't recall entering. June leaves the Knights and contacts her voicemail, knowing her phone is bugged. She informs the eavesdroppers that she has the Zephyr, and wants to make a deal. However, she's captured by Antonio's men, and taken back to Seville, Spain, where she's drugged with truth serum. Antonio realizes she has a fake Zephyr, and June explains that Roy wanted her to follow him, leading the agents away, so she can reach in time for the wedding also, and she doesn't know where the real Zephyr is. Frustrated, Antonio orders her execution. Fitzgerald, having kidnapped Feck, arrives at Antonio's compound to make a deal. Roy, who has been tracking Feck using his phone, also arrives. They rescue June, and chase Fitzgerald and Feck on a motorcycle, dodging Antonio's men during the running of the Bulls Festival. In the midst of the pursuit, Antonio's attempt to shoot Roy results in his car being overturned and trampled by bulls. Roy confronts Fitzgerald at a dock, trading the Zephyr for Feck, who pleads for his life. However, Fitzgerald shoots Feck anyways, and June witnesses the incident, as Fitzgerald escapes in a plane with the overheating Zephyr. Right after Feck explains it is unstable, the battery explodes, killing Fitzgerald. June realizes Roy took the gunshot meant for Feck, and sends Feck to get help. Roy wakes up in a Washington, D.C. hospital, and receives an apology from Director George, who reveals she had been deceived by Fitzgerald, the real rogue agent in the agency. He inquires about June, and is informed that she's back home and moved on. The director explains that they'll transfer him to a secure facility for his safety, echoing the words he had warned June about. However, as they leave, a nurse enters to administer medication to Roy, who realizes he's been drugged. He then sees that the nurse is June. She discreetly helps Roy escape from the hospital, and they drive off in the rebuilt 66 GTO. Roy regains consciousness in the passenger seat of the car, on a Mexican beach, with June returning from a beachside shop. After asking about the day, she kisses him, and says it's someday. She informs him they're heading to Cape Horn, and he smiles. They drive away, traveling along a coastal road. Unexpectedly, the Knights receive 2 tickets to Cape Horn. Molly believes her husband mistakenly ordered them, but insists they won the tickets, and convinces Frank to go. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.